Alright, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I am Is There No One Else, and the video I'm bringing you today, we are going to be discussing the Warden changes. I'm going to read through what the patch notes are for the changes, and then I'm going to go on the PTS and kind of show you them and show you a couple things. So, with that being said, guys, let's dive into it. They adjusted Betty Netch. They got rid of the recovery at the base level, so now each morph provides stamina or magic recovery. On top of that, guys, they also gave... you can now remove one negative effect every 5 seconds running the Betty Netch. And so that's a total of 5 seconds because it has a 25-second duration. A total of 5 effects every 25 seconds, so it's a 5-second duration. Now, in the grand scheme of things, guys, this isn't a big change. You know, one negative effect every 5 seconds isn't going to, like, all of a sudden make Wardens ridiculous. However, I do not know why they did this to this skill. The skill was already powerful. It already provided a bunch of utility. It already, gave a nice stamina or magic restore. A lot of people are using it. It's not like the skill was weak by any means. In open world PvP, you're barely going to notice this because you're getting hit with so many negative effects as it is. Like, it's not going to change anything. You're going to probably see this a little bit. It's going to be a little bit more impactful in dueling, I would think, just because removing a negative effect immediately is kind of nice. Dive. This ability has received a new functionality to help it stand alone as a spammable, but has received some reductions in the base functionality that were in place to make up for the fact that it lacked any gameplay-altering effects. So they reduced the damage by 10%, and they increased their cost, which is a pretty nice nerf. And then if you are at least 12 meters from the target upon dealing damage with these abilities, you now set them off balance. So an off balance proc, if you have points in the CP tree, can do 10% more damage. Yeah. Cutting dive, this morph no longer reduces the dot. I do not have, I'm going to show a magical warden, so I do not have this currently. I will have to go and show the cutting dive change, but the stamina morph now applies a bleed to the target for 7 seconds if they're off balance, which can stack up to 7 times. So you can have a pretty powerful bleed. So stamina, once again, has a... We're going to have to go in and show a stamina warden with cutting dive. Swarm, increase the cost of this ability and its morphs to 2970. These abilities now apply minor vulnerability to the target for the duration of the dot. Decrease the damage per tick of these abilities by approximately 50%. Dots got nerfed across the board, so this one is no different. Growing Swarm. This morph has been redesigned into a stamina-based ability that deals bleed damage. Swarm no longer spreads to nearby enemies upon completion, but instead deals damage to enemies in an area around the initial target. This damage is roughly 25% of the initial target's coefficient. So, this is kind of cool that, Wardens now have a stamina-based dot that they can use. Once again, guys, Stamina Wardens, in my opinion, have one of the more complete toolkits in the game. And so them giving them something like Growing Swarm and then them giving them a bleed that stacks 7 times if they're over 12 meters away and sets them off balance and giving them a Purify, like all this it's nice. But it was already a powerful class, and so my concern is people are going to be potentially crying about Stamina Wardens, and then they're going to overreact next patch and like nerf the shit out of them. And so I do think Wardens need adjustments. I just don't want to see a class to get to like Pet Sork level overpowered, And I'm not saying that Warden is that way, and I have to actually play it. I'm just saying that they have ways to do burst damage and bleed damage. They can now, if dots ever come back, being able to, have bleeds here and then have bleeds here as well as in like the dual wield skill line. Like, it's another play style, which is cool. It is cool that this class has this. It'd be cool if all the classes had this kind of functionality to have different play styles within their toolkit. So, anyways, Winter's Embrace, Arctic Wind. This ability and its morphs have regained the original function of Arctic Blast and deal frost damage in a 6-meter area around the caster while the heal over time persists. This damage scales with your max magic and spell damage to prevent compounded power for tank builds. Arctic Blast. This morph no longer converts the ability into an awkward projectile stun. Instead, this ability has inherited Permafrost's old functionality, where enemies hit 3 times in rapid succession with the ability are stunned. This stun cannot be blocked. So now, Wardens have an AoE unblockable stun. This has to tick 3 times, and then when it does, you cannot dodge it, you cannot block it, you are stunned. And so now Wardens have their CC. Let's all rejoice. It is a must it is a very nice change, especially for Magicka-based Wardens, in my opinion. Crystallized Shield, Crystallized Slab. This Morph now has a 500 millisecond internal cooldown, yada yada yada. Gripping Shards, they reduced the damage of that by 33%. And then Permafrost got a pretty big rework. No longer stuns. They increased the duration up to 12 seconds at rank 4. I can't remember what it used to be. Increased the snare potency to 70% from 40%. They changed how snares work in these patch notes. I do not know what 40 to what 70% with the new math turns out to be. But yeah, and then each ticket of damage now applies the chilled status effect to enemies hit. So not only do you get major protection, you now apply the chilled status effect, which is minor maim. So while you have this up, you do have a shit ton of damage mitigation with Permafrost still. So that being said, guys, let's go to the PTS and let's look at what we have here. It's not really a build, guys. I threw on some gear. I got Spinners, Bloodspawn, Swift, Black Rose dual wield. Here's my character sheet. Nothing special, like I said. Probably can get away with less recovery as it currently stands in Dragonhold, but we don't know how it's going to turn out. I just threw this together the way it is right now. Yeah, so anyways, Screaming Cliff Racer, I'm going to do last. This is going to be the biggest discussion in this video, but I'm just going to skip over it because I don't want to. I want to dive into the other stuff first before I go on my little tangent about Screaming Cliff Racer. But yeah, Swarm, as you guys can see, this is the unmorph version. 9672 damage over 10 seconds. If we look at the other morph, 9684. Just not a ton of damage right now. Dots are too low. The only reason you'd really run this is because it does minor vulnerability. And here's the stamina morph. Yeah, probably similar damage with, a Warden spec. Betty Netch, here you go. Blue Betty. Restores 4992 magic over 22 seconds. Major brutality and sorcery every 5 seconds, and that removes a negative effect. Same thing here. What else do we have here? We have our Arctic Wind. If we change it to Arctic Blast, when it heals you for 4736, so a small heal and an additional 568 health, so you have a heal over time. While the effect persists, the winds pulse outwards, dealing 1783 frost damage every 1 second to the nearby enemies. Enemies hit by this effect 3 times are stunned for 4 seconds. So here's the CC. It also is a heal over time. Looks pretty useful and interesting in my opinion. I think that's it. And so we're going to test the Arctic Wind for you guys when I cast it. This is the AoE. When this thing's hit 3 times, it will be CC'd. So it is a very large CC. And so this is kind of nice. Some classes, like Nightblade, have Fear and Shadow Image to maneuver around and get some survivability that way. Now they have Templars with Living Dark, so that snares them and gives them some maneuverability. Sorks have Streak. DKs have... DKs don't have anything like this, let's be honest. They don't have anything like this, to be honest. But it is nice that now, if you're jumping on one person, you now pay the price for being in melee range. And so you do choose to take that fear if you are in there. And so, yeah, it's actually looks like it's okay damage, and the CC is going to be nice. Dot, like I said, currently just not very usable. Minor vulnerability is the main thing to talk about. And yeah, we are going to go into Screaming Cliff Racer. Now, I'm only talking about the magic form of this because I don't think this is a very good synergy, guys. I don't think... I talked about it a little bit on the patch notes, and I tested it a little bit, and I wanted to show you guys what I was talking about. But I don't think it's very good for Magicka Wardens. And at the end of the day, I'm really not trying to rag on Stamina Wardens, but Stamina Wardens don't really need much help. Magicka Wardens do. And so providing an off balance for a Magicka Warden seems kind of decent on paper, but how everything lines up doesn't work out very well. So we're gonna dive into that, and I'm gonna show you guys what I'm talking about. So if we go into our blue tree, in order to do 10% more damage, you have to have the Exploiter passive. And so increase your damage done against off-balance enemies by 10%. So you have to have 75 points into this tree in order to get the Exploiter passive. Now, this is the stamina-based tree. And so Stamina Wardens, it'll be very, very easy for them to get the Exploiter passive because almost all their points are going to go into this tree anyways. Mighty, Piercing, Precise Strikes, and probably Summon to Thom. For Wardens, you basically, for Magical Wardens, in order to get it, you basically throw 75 points into Thom. And currently, dots are kind of garbage. You only have one class-based dot as a Magical Warden. And so do you really want to buff 75 points into Thaumaturge in order to buff your one dot and get the Exploiter passive for all of your other abilities? So that's what it comes down to. And some of you guys are going to say, hey, maybe it does, because it is 10%, and 10% is a lot. Keep in mind, the 10% is additive, so it actually is less than 10%. But with that being said, guys, it's still worth testing to find out. So because Wardens currently have a bunch of burst damage, I threw 32 points into Blessed, 56 Ally Expert, 56 Elfborn, 54 Spell Erosion, and 72 Mastered Arms. So that's kind of how my CP is. I'm not saying that this is the best CP. This is just what I did, because we have our Bird, we have our Sub Assault, our Magical Form. That's all burst damage, and so we want to make sure we're hitting as hard as possible. So when we crit hard. We have high magic damage, we have high Spell Erosion, and we have high direct damage abilities. So that's why I did it. If we take this out, and we're gonna have to take a bunch of points out of here because, well, I'm sorry. Before I do this, I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about. We're gonna just go into the tooltip here. But if we stand at the farthest range possible, and we summon our Netch, and then with this build, we hit with our Bird, you see we do 8624 and 14662. So 14662. I guess I'm going to crit everything. 8624. So keep those numbers in mind. If we go in our CP tree and we adjust our dots, or we adjust this and we drop this down. Keep in mind, guys, we need 75 points. We got to get them from somewhere, so we got to take a bunch of points out of here. We're going to take a couple points out of here because it's only going to reduce 1%. A couple points out of Spell Pen. All right. And we'll take a couple points out of here. A couple more points out of here. There we go. So now we have 75 points. We can all throw this into Thom. And so now we can use the off balance passive and do 10% more damage when they're off balance. So our next Bird afterwards will do more damage. And so here's what we do. We will sit back here, we'll buff up, and then we will hit with our Bird. And so the first one sets them off balance, and you see 8423, 8423. Oh, I'm apparently a practice warrior now. 13322, 13322. So 332. I can't say numbers right now. 13,332. So even with the Exploiter passive, with this Bird, guys, you will do less damage trying to use that as a Magical Warden. You're better off taking these points out of Thom and putting them into direct damage-based abilities. So although this does look nice that you can provide off balance, in general, I don't think it's, unless you basically want the utility to be able to do it for your group. Let's say you're fighting a group and you want to be able to stay at range and do off balance to people at range. And so that your group, now that they're off balance, your group all has the Exploiter passive and they can do more damage. That would make sense. For you individually, it's, as I just showed, you're better off just stacking directly into direct damage to get these other dots up. And honestly, guys, with dots, like I said, the way they currently are, and I do think that they're going to come up, but with dots the way they currently are, I wouldn't really be looking at dots unless they provided something. And so wanted to look at this one to see if the off balance was worth it, and it doesn't look like it is. So yeah, as I said, guys, it's not a huge deal by any means. It's just one of those things where it's like, really, so as I said, Stamina Warden will obviously be able to utilize the off balance passive. They'll be able to utilize the minor vulnerability. So will Magical Wardens. These are nice changes in general for Wardens across the board. These are very nice changes. They have strong healing. They now have an AoE CC. Magical Warden got some help there. Obviously, Deep Fissure plus Screaming Cliff Racer. It's okay. I do think Screaming Cliff Racer, the Magicka form, needs to be adjusted to something else. And so I think, in my opinion, instead of it being off balance, I think it just needs to be you do more damage at range. I know it says deals up to 15% more damage based on how far away the enemy is. You know, maybe have that be 25% more damage. Like if you're trying to provide utility for this, I think that's what you have to do. But my other problem with this skill, and I'm just going to keep ragging on this skill, but you have to be 12 meters away in order to get the off balance proc. And so I think I'm going to get in range of where I think the off balance is. I think it's here. But the problem is it doesn't coincide with our deep fissure. And so if we look at our ranges here, you know, we have a 20 by 7 meters, which is nice. So the very deepest end of our deep fissure, we could get the off balance proc potentially for this. But as I said, like, it's just not doing the damage that we want it to do. And so I don't know, guys. I like the changes. Like for Magicka Wardens, I like a lot of the changes. Like I like the swarm change. You know, the minor vulnerability will come in very handy. Honestly, the permafrost change is also very nice, as I showed you before. The snare plus, you know, it's 9 seconds now. Major protection with the minor maim is going to be very nice. Like that, it is very, very good. It was already a strong ultimate. It's still going to be a strong ultimate. So I think all those changes are good. I think Cliff Racer needs some more love, in my opinion. So let me know what you guys think. Obviously, I may be missing something. Maybe I'm missing something with Screaming Cliff Racer here. But, you know, just looking at it, the off balance just doesn't seem to do a whole lot. And, you know, with how deep fissure works, you will only really get the off balance when they're farther away. And so you're punishing people for being in your face with this. You're punishing people for being in your face with this. You're punishing them with this. You're not punishing them with this. And so you almost have a really nice synergy with Magicka Wardens, in my opinion. You almost do. I think that little rework with that one skill for Magicka Wardens would make it a lot better. So that's the end of this video. Let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.